Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Veg Networking, where vegan plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs connect and collaborate. Our special guest today is an integral part of the first functional chocolate bar. Everything a chocolate bar isn't, and everything a protein bar wishes it was. The product is the same as 1.8 servings of salmon for your omega-3s. It's gluten-free. It's the same as 3 servings of broccoli for your fiber. It has real chocolate. It is the same as 2 medium eggs for your protein, all plant-based. The company has over 1,400 Google reviews, sitting at a 4.9, basically a 5. We welcome today a disruptor, co-founder, and CEO of MidDay Squares. Welcome, Lezlie Karls Saltarelli.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Justin, Helen, Sandra, Shauna, and Mike. I'm super pumped to be here. That was a really nice intro. I'll give you guys a little background on MDS, MidDay Squares, and what we do. So you summed it up pretty well. We are a functional chocolate bar, kind of the sweet spot between a protein bar and a chocolate bar. And why we call it functional is because it's not just there to satisfy your cravings, but it's there to add value to your life. So the protein, the fiber component, and it really gives you the extra energy you need. When we designed this product, we designed it for your afternoon crash. So that's why it is called MidDay Squares. So after lunch, when you need something between lunch and dinner, that's really where we've got you covered. And we worked, when we started MidDay Squares, I was making a version of the fudge for Nick, who's my husband. So it's myself, my husband, Nick, and my brother, Jake. We're the 3 co-founders and an incredible team. And I was making a version for Nick. Now, when I was making this version for him, it didn't have all the functions that it has today, and it had a lot more sugar than it has today, but it was really a version of fudge. And when we decided to commercialize this product, we worked with McGill. And one of our things was, when we were working with McGill, is we really want this to do what it says. And so that's why the MidDay Square does cover you for a couple of hours, and it gives you that extra energy you need, and it really gives you the function you're looking for. So, if you actually read all those reviews on Google, a lot of people use the word actually. This actually does this, or this actually tastes like that. So it makes me happy to see that, because I know that we're really doing our job, and we're really creating trust between us and the consumer. And so that's MidDay Squares, a functional chocolate bar. We have been around for going on 3 years in August. We are based out of Montreal, Quebec. We manufacture everything ourselves. We just moved into our fully automated manufacturing plant last year that we built. And we are now expanding into the US. So it's been really crazy the last little bit on scaling, but there's exciting stuff that's going on, right? And now we actually have 3 flavors out on the market. So we've got our fudge, our almond crunch, and our peanut butter. And they are all plant-based, gluten-free, non-GMO, organic. So we have a lot of good things happening with the product.
Yeah, a lot of good things. And to your point, you're really delivering on the value prop, right? Actually being able to satisfy in that way. So we know that you come from the fashion industry, and I believe your husband from tech, and Jake from fashion, I think, as well. But collectively, what is your startup story?
So collectively, Jake, Nick, and I have been entrepreneurs for the last decade of our lives, swinging and missing. Nick did have a company that did take off, and he sold that back in 2000, I could be 16, 17. And Jake and I have really been swinging and missing for the last 10 years of our lives. And I've learned a lot on the journey, but so exactly, Jake comes from, he was in clothing, but basically his whole concept was making people feel something deeply and building a community behind the college, the college community. So he had a company called Chase and Hunter, but he was selling merch, but no one really cared about the merch. They just wanted to be part of what he was kind of making people feel. So we knew actually when we started MidDay Squares, because Nick and I had started prior to Jake, and we convinced him to come join our chocolate bar company. And he's like, I don't want to be part of a chocolate bar company, which was actually really funny. So it took us a couple of months to convince him, but we really brought him on because we knew he knew how to build community. And then myself, I was in clothing. And I think one of my biggest failures was I was making product for the 6-foot thin model. I'm 5'1" and really curvy. So I wasn't even a customer of my own product. And I know when part of my learnings from failing on my last company was make something for you, right? Solve a problem that you have. So when I was in fashion, I wasn't solving my problem. My problem is finding clothes that fit me at that time. Now we've obviously come a far way in the curvy market. And there's a lot more selection, but back then there wasn't. And so I came from the fashion world, and then Nick came from tech and software. And his company did pan out, but Nick and all three of us really believe in making on average decisions. And so it came to a point where he did feel that he needed to make a change. And a lot of people thought he was crazy because the money was there, and people deem success of how much money you're making or how much money you have, and that's one way of looking at it. But the other way is, are you happy? Are you feeling like you have purpose and passion and all these things? So the last 10 years, people always ask us, oh, MidDay Squares is just taking off. It's like, no, that's 10 years in the making. Like MidDay Squares took off because of all the valuable lessons we learned and all the, times we swung and miss. And then, taking the learnings and putting them to MidDay Squares. So that was kind of our last 10 years, just trying a bunch of different things, dabbling in all different worlds of entrepreneurship. And we all really, so Nick and I, Jake's my brother, obviously. And so I didn't actually ever think I was going to be partners with my brother, to be honest with you. We have a good relationship, but I never saw that happening. And Nick and I have been friends, started our friendship at like 14 years old. We only got married later on in life. We actually lived with each other before we were married as friends. So it's really funny how all these things end up, but now we're the tripod, and MidDay Squares wouldn't be what it is without each one of us. We all bring very different things to the table, and I just don't think it would work without one of us, to be honest with you. So that's a little bit about our journey of how we got to where we are today.
Absolutely. And there's nothing better than a 10-year or 20-year overnight success. That's remarkable. And yeah, it really only takes 3 strong pillars to have a strong seat, right? So very good foundation, very good balance. And did you say unaveraged decisions?
I did, yes. So you want me to talk? So basically, we speak about this often, that if you on average decisions, you're most likely going to have unaverage outcomes. And unaverage outcomes can be good or bad. They could be on both sides of the spectrum. But if you're not making unaverage decisions, then you're just going to lead an average life because you don't even give yourself the opportunity to have the unaverage outcomes. So yeah, we speak a lot about, if the herd is or if your peers or people around you are all veering to one decision point, question it. Why are people thinking like that? Is it herd mentality, or is there a real reason? And then level up from first principles, right? So reason from first principle thinking. So I think that's really how we operate at MidDay Squares. And we play a lot of offense instead of defense. And I think you need that when you're an entrepreneur, because if you're playing not to lose, you end up losing. You really got to play to win. That is what I've learned a lot over the last almost 3 years doing MidDay Squares.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. That's just a lens and a light into the culture at MidDay Squares, that whole stemming from unaverage decisions, because I'm sure that filters down to everybody who is tight to the company. So that's outstanding. Okay, so what are some trends in your industry?
So for us, when we actually started MidDay Squares, I was making a version of this for Nick, but he had gotten some really good industry inside information that plant-based was growing tremendously, and so was the real chocolate market. So like you see now, like the Hue Kitchens, like the Honey Mamas, like so not the palm kernel, not enrobed chocolate, real chocolate experience. And that's when we had that aha moment that I was making a version of that. So what do we see right now? I mean, plant-based is on the rise. I mean, people want plant-based products. There's not even enough plant-based products out there. And so we see plant-based really, really, really exploding. And for us, non-GMO is really big as well. Even fair trade, sustainability, people are really looking to be part of companies that stand for these things. I mean, they are extremely important. So that's what we're seeing is, and even organic, by the way. You know, what's funny is a lot of VCs that we've spoken to, they're like, oh, well, you know, let's drop the organic basically because, you know, we'll win on conventional pricing when it comes to supply chain, right? And early on, we were hearing that a lot from the VCs. And at one point, we're like, should we look at that? And then we realized it was against our core values. Like we want to be organic. We believe in organic. And so this is what it's going to be. And we're going to make it work with scale. Right. And so you see that a lot of, from a standpoint of the P&L or your margins and your percentages, organic is a scary route, but I see that as a huge trend. Like right now, there are not many bars in the fridge that are organic. They may be non-GMO, they may be gluten-free and all these things, but they're not organic. And I think that that's going to be huge for us down the road, is that we've committed to the organic. And I don't know where, strong opinions loosely held. We don't know where the world's going to go. If there could be another derivative of a line one day, at the end of the day, it's what the consumer wants to pay. So there's still that whole conversation between the price and what consumers are willing to pay and for what, right? And so we always like to compare it to Nike. You could buy a Nike sneaker at $300, but you can also go to the outlet and be part of Nike for $50, right? So there's that beautiful thing of offering a product for everyone, and not everybody can afford a $4 bar, right? But that is got to be the price when you're organic and when you're buying plant products and all these things that have a more complex supply chain, which our product does. It's very, very complex. So yeah, I think those are the trends that I really see: non-GMO, plant-based, organic, sustainability, fair trade.
Love it, love it, love it. Especially the part of being challenged and receiving maybe some pushback, and taking a step out and a step back and saying, does this make sense? And ultimately coming to the conclusion based on core values. Absolutely love it. All right, you briefly talked about your amazing, exciting new production facility, manufacturing facility, and you briefly touched on venturing across the border down south from Canada to the United States. So with both of those things being said, where is MDS going in the future?
So for MDS, number one thing right now is expansion. Building that plant and being able to increase capacities tremendously, we need to fill orders. We need to grow the business, right? So it is a cash heavy company when you're manufacturing. So now we need to go out and scale and grow the business. So in the next year, we're starting to grow the US. So we touched down in the US in March, I want to say March. End of February, March, and we're seeing good growth. But obviously with the pandemic, it's been a little harder to really build through community building. MidDay Squares is based on community, brand. I mean, like even Sandra, you know us because you watch our social media, you're engaged with the story, right? And that when we started, a big part of how we kind of blew up was building the community, telling the story, but also being with our community, right? So like going to exercise events, going to park events, and so there were so many other, I'm just blanking, but so many other events that we were a part of that really helped grow the brand. And so in the US, it's been a little more challenging. So the goal is to, get some trial going on there, grow the sales, and really open probably about 800 to 1,000 retail doors this year. And then see what 22 has to, how everything comes together by then. So giving it enough time for people to find the product, taste it, and start spreading the word, right? So that's what 2021 holds, is just the expansion into the US, and also continuing to expand in Canada, making sure that it is available in areas where everyone lives. And so that's that component. Now the product's really complex because it's refrigerated and it has a short shelf life. Yeah. So growing this product is not like, okay, let's produce 100,000 bars next week, leave them on the shelf, or ship them to a 3PL in the US and then try to get orders. No, we have 75 days once the product hits the shelf. Mm-hmm. So we have 25 days from manufacturing date till it gets to the store, which is not a lot of time to, do the whole logistical supply chain and everything like that. So the product is very complex. And so that's what this year looks like for us in terms of expansion. But manufacturing, which I'm personally super excited about, because I didn't mention this early on the call, I'm the CEO. That means nothing. That's basically just a title as of now. I've been a CEO for less than 3 years of my life. I'm learning to actively be a great leader and learning what that means to be a CEO. But what I manage on the day-to-day at MidDay Squares is manufacturing, R&D, media, and marketing. So I'm not in sales and I'm not in operations and finance. So I don't like to usually speak to those because they're not my strengths. But what I can talk to you about today, which I'm really excited about, is manufacturing. When we started this company, we were making the product, I was making the product in our condo by hand. And I scaled that up to a production crew. And we were able to manufacture everything by hand for a little bit of time until I realized that we're going to run into a serious problem if we can't scale this. And we had visited so many co-packers because ultimately going the co-packer route and having someone manufacture the product for you is a lot easier with two quotations, because nothing's easy, but it allows you, manufacturing food has many challenges and requires a lot of money and expertise to really do right. It's food, it's safety, there's a lot of complexities. So going the co-man route and then being able to, build your brand and push sales is different than manufacturing yourself. But when I visit these co-packers, they couldn't make the product and they just kept saying, let's change your product so we can manufacture it on our line. And by the end of the conversation, it looked like every other product on the market. And I'm like, yeah, this is not what has product market fit. This is what proved product market fit. So I had to build up the manufacturing plan, and I had a very short amount of time to do so. But I'm happy to say we're in there a year. We received our equipment in May of 2022. Sorry, 2022. I'm already there. May 2020. And it was really hectic with COVID, bringing in engineers from all over the world. But we did it. And I want to say that it was one of my biggest learning experiences that I've ever had, but also the thing that I'm most proud of, because many people told me it wasn't possible. And today I'm proud to say that we are manufacturing on the line. We still have many things to work through. And that's what 2021 is it's working through all the challenges that we currently face, the waste that we face, and moving from a manual process to an automated process. So that's what 2021 looks like. And then from a brand standpoint, it's like growing the brand, right? Elevating, continuing to put out good content, continuing to build the community behind MidDay Squares.
Remarkable. Yeah, with great complexity brings great opportunity, and we're all hearing that in what you're describing. When you touch down in the U.S., is it East West? Is it Mid U.S.? Where are we at right now?
So our original game plan was to focus in on cities, because that's what we had done when we launched MidDay Squares in Canada. We had focused like on Montreal once we felt that was our whole thing is, if you got to be within 5 kilometers of like every store, because a person needs to be able to go to their cafe and find your product, their favorite coffee shop, find your product, their mom and pop shop, when they go for their specialty thing, they find your product. And all of a sudden they're seeing your product everywhere and they're like, oh, what's this brand? And so you're right, you're placing yourself everywhere, and then you have a word of mouth that happens, and hype that starts being built. So we thought that that would be the best strategy for the US, and we've kind of veered from that. So now we're East and West. We were originally going to just launch in Austin, Texas, because there's been crazy growth there with tech and all other different industries over the past year. So we were really seeing that as a powerful hub. But now we're heavily in LA, and I'm proud to say that we're launching, I can't name the retailer, but we've secured a big retailer for June 3rd, and they have 400 stores. So we will basically spread throughout East and West. I'm excited to see how it's going to go. I mean, there's a lot of legwork that has to happen. Yes, we're in the store. We've got to push the product. So we're actually in the middle of hiring a US sales rep that will just be on the ground there, on top of our brokers and distributors who are already there. So we really need someone that's MDS to go and make sure everything is happening the way we need it to happen. Again, it is all the unknown for us. So I'm excited to see what the next year holds. And I think what I'm also really excited for is to get demoing back, because when you're in food, you need bars in bellies. That's what we say. So the more bars and bellies, the better it is for us. So hopefully that will come back sooner than later.
Yeah, it will. Absolutely, it will. And wow, that's a great strategy in terms of what you described about getting that brand out there from all different areas. That's amazing. What are some struggles that you face being plant-based?
I would say the struggles are mainly the supply chain. Sometimes I try to explain to my customers, they'll buy a peanut butter and they'll be like, oh, it wasn't as peanutty this month. Well, yeah, it's like when you buy watermelon and not in watermelon season, you're not going to get that watermelon that that you want, right? The flavors that we expect it to be. With crops, with different seasons, with the weather, with the rain, with the humidity, with the altitude, like it all affects our product. So that's very complex for us. When we receive goods, like I'll just speak on, let's say our yacon, right? It comes from Peru. And depending on, how the rain was this crop, that will change the flavor of the yacon. And then we receive it and maybe it's too plummy, right? And now all of a sudden, because we don't use any natural flavors in our product, we don't use any preservatives, we don't use any extract, anything that can enhance the flavor artificially, we're not using any of that. So if the plumminess is too powerful, and then the peanut crop was less peanutty, now all of a sudden you're going to taste plum in the product and you're not going to taste the peanut butter the way it was designed. But maybe next month the crop was stronger, so we face a lot of those issues in terms of controlling the level of taste, the variables in taste, because it's product from the plant, from the world, right? From the planet. So I think that's something that does keep me up at night for sure, is managing that. We have really amazing suppliers. It's just, there are some things that are just out of their control that we're trying to figure out, whether that's we have, 4 different suppliers for one item, right? Which is still complex because our product, again, is so fragile in the recipe because there's no powerful artificial flavors. Like when you're buying a protein bar that has whey in it and it has vanilla whey, right? Which is, it masks everything. It has a strong flavor profile. So it masks anything else you're putting in the bar. When you put hemp in our bar, hemp on its own doesn't taste great. Like I eat hemp all the time, but on its own, it's got a really powerful planty taste, and people want our bar because it tastes delicious. It tastes like a functional chocolate bar. So we've got to mask the hemps. We've got to mask the sachinchi. We've got to mask the products in the ingredients in the product. And that is challenging. So I would say that the hardest part is balancing flavor control and supply chain and making sure that we get what we design however we design the product is what we need to try to get. And so now we're in the middle of getting, like I said, 4 suppliers for the same ingredient. So if one, lot comes in from one supplier that has decreased taste, flavor profiles in peanut, I have another supplier on hand. So with let's say a recipe that has small amount of changes, boom, I swap it in, and then we're able to produce. So that way we can fluctuate between what's coming in with a more potent flavor profile and so on and so forth. So it is very complex, and we're still in the early stages of figuring all that out. So I would say, yeah, supply chain keeps me up at night. And then I think there's so much innovation to be had when it comes to plant-based. I think there's so much out there, from I recently just saw some stuff on mushrooms, on what they can grow on the tree. It kind of looks like these big, these white things. I forget what it was called. And now they're using that for like a replica of meat, right? But it's flavorless, so you could do anything to it, but it's got that texture that maybe some people like. So I would say that there's so much exciting stuff coming out. And I would say that if we can continue developing products that have more neutral flavor profiles, I think we'll start seeing a lot more plant-based products come out. I think the challenges are now is innovation and R&D, and people per se are not spending the money on putting out quality products that truthfully taste good. You could have a ton of vegan products out there that have a bunch of crap in them, artificial crap, right? Vegan doesn't mean good for you, so you want to buy stuff that actually has stuff from the planet, but not all this added stuff to make it taste good. We want to that's MidDay Squares. We use the stuff as is, and we have figured out a way to make it taste good. So I think those are the challenges.
Totally. And speaking to, whenever you speak to entrepreneurs or business owners, you're spot on. I am now going to lose a little bit of sleep for you based over that lack of control when it comes to the crops and everything. It's so uncertain. It's so beautiful too at the same time. So I can understand completely what you're saying. And we're all looking forward to hearing the announcement on June 3rd about this new retailer and what that's going to bring for, like you said, more bars in more bellies. So on a personal note, Les, what are some books or a book or a podcast or an app that you use that you find valuable as a leader?
So, okay, it's so funny because if Jake and Nick were on the call right now, Jake and Nick are huge readers. I think Jake reads a book a week. That's how much he reads. And I've yet to find my groove when it comes to reading. I not suffer because ADHD is a superpower, but I have ADHD. So sometimes I read and then it's like, I got to read it again because nothing processed, right? Yeah, I went in and out. So I'm not on the books right now. A podcast, I'm going to promote our own, MidDay Squares Uncensored. We talk about entrepreneurship, chocolate, and a bunch of other great things. So I would say if you're into, just roundtable talk or added value when it comes to entrepreneurship and our take on it, check our podcast out. What I really do for myself as a leader, I would say I invest a lot of time in therapy, business coaching therapy, once a week. We're on repeat. That has been life-changing for me. I've been doing it for a very long time. When Jake, Nick, and I started this journey, because of how fragile the relationships are, we committed to seeing a business therapist coach once a week. That saved this partnership because 87% of businesses end due to founder conflict. So it's those sessions where we show up and we work through crazy stuff. I mean, we have the hardest conversations there, and that's where I challenge myself the most and face all those things. So I would say, as a leader, don't be afraid to get help. We all need it, and yeah, that's what I do to keep me leveled.
Wow, wonderful. So much candor. So you touched on the difficulty or how hard it is to develop plant-based products. I think you kind of talked about that. If there's anything more you want to touch on there, and then you really just did drop an absolute gem when it comes to our last question, which is, do you have any advice for business owners or entrepreneurs? So with that being said, did you want to talk any more about the difficulty of creating plant-based products, or any further nuggets of wisdom or advice for business owners and entrepreneurs?
I would say on the plant-based side, if you're looking to launch a plant-based product, I think this is the time. I think, like I said, it is more than ever, people are aware of it. People are changing their way of eating, changing their way of life. But put something that's good out there. Don't just throw a bunch of shit into something and put out a subpar product. Like, we have enough of those on the market. So come to play. Do your research and spend time in R&D and really make something good. Because even for myself, I don't find a lot of good snacks out there that make my tummy feel good, So I think spend the time, put the effort in, enter the plant-based world. It's incredible. It's exploding. There's so much opportunity there. I think words of wisdom that I've learned that have worked for me is level up from first principle thinking always. Like don't just, I'm here talking and you could take what I'm saying or you could not take what I'm saying, but still do your research, figure it out for yourself, make sure what I'm saying makes sense to you or not. Just level up from first principle thinking. That's all I could say, because I've met with a lot of experts and I've met with a lot of people, and I was told that a lot of things weren't possible. And then I leveled up from first principle thinking and they were possible. So, and don't be scared to fail. I've been failing for a very large part of my life. So when the time is right and you have product market fit, you'll know, and it's okay to fail. Even now at MidDay Squares, I don't show up. I've at times I've been really scared and I've played defense, and that's the worst thing you can do. Is play defense. The minute you start playing defense, it's over, So just be confident in your decision making, and make decisions. That's really important. Make those decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you take action. And absolutely love the sports analogies, right? Playing offense, playing defense. Earlier on, you talked about swinging and missing for almost 10 years, hence the 10-year overnight success story. Yeah, and it's, I'm wearing a Major League Baseball hat. It's just like that sport. You can walk up to the plate and strike out 7 out of 10 times, basically get 3 base hits, and you're making millions of dollars as an all-star in the Major League Baseball league. And so I absolutely resonate. We all absolutely resonate with what you're saying. Before we talk about where people can find you, of course, it's not difficult because you're doing a wonderful job of branding. But before we get to that point, is there anything that you want to promote about you, about the business, about any other businesses that you're supporting, or anything? We just want to leave the floor open to you if there's anything we missed.
I would say, so basically for us, like I said, I think check out our podcast. It's great. Instagram at MidDay Squares, our website, middaysquares.com. We do have a TikTok that we're working on as well, MidDay Squares. Do I have any businesses that I truthfully love? I love many businesses. I have a bunch in mind. There's a lot of great companies out there. I don't always like naming because I don't want to leave people out, but I do have a bunch that I would share with you guys if you want to share it to your network after the show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And everybody, you heard it here first, right from Lezlie. www.middaysquares.com, on Instagram at middaysquares, and you're going to certainly find a bunch of crew love and good vibes only. Thank you so much, Lezlie.
Thanks, guys.